former British Prime Minister Theresa May spent 7 months trying to sell a Brexit deal that lawmakers rejected 3 times. So her successor, Boris Johnson, is taking a different route by asking the Queen to suspend Parliament next month.
We need to get on with the domestic agenda, and that's why we're announcing a Queen's speech for October the 14th.
The speech would mark the reopening of Parliament just over 2 weeks before the Brexit deadline of October the 31st. That would leave little time for debate on Johnson's plans.
This is an attempt by a Prime Minister who was elected by a very small number of people in the country as a Conservative Party membership to ride roughshod over Parliament and prevent any legislation or debate that would stop this country leaving the EU without a deal and all the problems that it would cause.
Corbyn has requested a meeting with the Queen over Johnson's proposal. The Prime Minister wants new terms from Brussels, but if the bloc refuses to renegotiate, he says the UK will leave without a deal. Private sector and government forecasts show that would lead to a deep economic slump.
There's a lot of unanimity across those opposition parties and even Conservative members of Parliament to say, actually, you can't career headlong into a no-deal Brexit. And so I think we will have some powers to stop that. I think this will backfire on the Prime Minister.
With the time they have under Johnson's timeline, opposition lawmakers say they plan to push for legislation to take a no-deal Brexit off the table. They also say they'll call for a vote of no confidence, with the hope of booting Johnson out of office. Paolo Montecillo, TRT World.
Well, for more, let's go to Professor Iain Begg from the European Institute at the London School of Economics and Political Science. Welcome back to Money Talks, Iain. Now, the opposition leader, Jeremy Corbyn, says Boris Johnson's move is a smash and grab on democracy. Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon says it's the act of a dictatorship. Why are we seeing such a huge backlash to the proposed suspension of Parliament?
Well, I think it's important, Oscar, to start by saying that this is not so unusual a manoeuvre in British politics. We used to have the suspension of Parliament every year so as to renew the electoral mandate that the government was trying to pursue by saying, here are the bills that we'd like to put forward. However, there's no doubt that Boris Johnson is using this for tactical reasons to make it more difficult for Parliament to object to what he's doing over Brexit. And that's why you're seeing the backlash from Nicola Sturgeon, Jeremy Corbyn and others. It's a naked attempt to make it harder for Parliament to oppose what he wants to do.
Yes, because just a day before, MPs had been talking about ways to perhaps stop a no-deal Brexit from going through. Can MPs still do that? Do they have a chance for that to happen?
Well, although we hear that this is going to be quite a long suspension of Parliament, in practice it's only 3 or 4 days of parliamentary time that are likely to be lost. A new Queen's speech is the way in which the government introduces what it wants to do for the forthcoming legislative period, which would normally be 1 year. So 3 or 4 days are being lost. Parliament can act very quickly if it manages to get its act together, and that's probably what's going to happen. There'll be huge pressure on the parliamentarians opposed to what Boris Johnson wants to do to come together to find a way of stopping him. And this is where the surprising flexibility of the British system kicks in. They could do it through a motion of no confidence. They could use an attempt to create a new law, which has been done before in the space of just 48 hours. Or it could be some parliamentary device which has not really been thought through yet. There are ways of doing this.
Yes, now all of this may in fact be a moot point if Boris Johnson and the EU managed to push through some sort of a deal. European leaders have given him the chance to come up with an alternative to the Irish backstop provision that Boris Johnson wants out of the deal. Do you see that happening realistically?
There's a reasonable chance that something will be found. But then you get into a different concern, which is that some of the Conservative backbenchers who propelled Boris Johnson into office are not going to be happy with Theresa May deal Mark II with 1 or 2 minor adjustments to it. So he may face opposition from his pro-Brexit wing if he has an insufficiently different deal, just as he's going to face opposition from the pro-Remain wing of his party if he goes for too hard a Brexit. So he's caught in the middle. And this is where the machinations going on inside Parliament will determine whether there's the arithmetic to oppose him whichever solution he comes up with, and therefore whether he stands a chance of getting something through.
Okay, Iain Begg, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you for your analysis as always.